You know that feeling when you're scrolling LinkedIn at 2 a.m. wondering if you're the only 34-year-old who still doesn't have their career figured out? We've all been there. Everyone else seems to have this perfectly linear path mapped out while you're over here looking at your resume like it was written by someone with career ADHD. Well, here's what I figured out that might help you too. And now this is gonna sound backwards, but your zigzag career path isn't evidence that you're behind. It's evidence that you're building something most people will never have. So by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why nonlinear careers are actually more valuable in 2025, and we'll both probably laugh at how we've been measuring success all wrong. So if you're ready to stop apologizing for your winding path and start leveraging it, let's figure this out together. So now, if you're like most people listening to this, you've probably been told to pick a lane and stick with it, right? We've all heard that career advice: choose your path at 22, climb the ladder, hit those milestones at the right ages. But here's what I think we've been missing, and this is where it gets interesting. That advice was designed for a world that does not exist anymore. The economy has changed, but we're still using the same old tired playbook. So by the end of this conversation, you're going to know exactly how to reframe your scattered resume as a competitive advantage, and you'll have a framework for explaining career changes that makes interviewers lean forward instead of raising their eyebrows. So if you're ready to turn your biggest career insecurity into your secret weapon, let's dive in. So, with that, let me paint a picture that you'll probably recognize. You're sitting in your car after school pickup, or maybe it's after a particularly soul crushing team meeting, and you're wondering if you're falling behind because you still don't know what you want to, in quotes, be when you grow up. Your LinkedIn feed is basically a highlight reel of people who always knew what they wanted to be in tech or had their 5 year plan mapped out in college. I don't know about you, but when I was in college, my 5 year plan involved avoiding 8 a.m. classes, just kidding, and figuring out what the cafeteria was serving for lunch. We've all been there when someone asks, "So, what do you want to do?" And you pause for just a moment too long before launching into an explanation that sounds like you're describing a career designed by committee. So here's what happened next. And I bet you've experienced this. You start questioning everything. Am I behind? Should I have it figured out by now? Is 30 too late? Is 40 too late? Am I just scattered? Meanwhile, there's this underlying cultural pressure that says linear equals legitimate. We worship the straight line success story. Graduate at 22, climb the ladder, milestones at prescribed ages. It's like we're all trying to follow a GPS route from 1995. But here's where it gets really frustrating. This creates what I call career change anxiety, that gnawing feeling that you're running out of time to become who you're supposed to be. And let's be honest, we all feel it. Even Forbes tells us about the perfect 10-year career plan, and we've all tried some version of that. But what they don't tell you is that this pressure rests on three myths that simply aren't true anymore. That you should know your calling by 25. Spoiler alert, most people don't. That changing direction means starting over. It doesn't. That time off track is time wasted. It's actually data collection. So I started wondering, what if we've been thinking about this all wrong? What if the very thing we think disqualifies us is actually what makes us irreplaceable? So let me share what I discovered when I stopped fighting my nonlinear path and actually started leveraging it. Step one, you need to understand why linear advice no longer works. First, you need to understand that the rules changed while nobody updated the handbook. Research from Stanford's Kenneth Stanley, I know, bear with me on the science for just a second, shows that the most breakthrough discoveries come not from pursuing specific goals, but from pursuing interesting paths. Here's what this means for you. When you think you're wandering, you're actually collecting. Every detour is data. Every wrong turn is skills acquisition. So let me give you a real example. Think of someone who went from accounting to corporate finance, spent 8 years there, then say launched a sustainable fashion brand at 35. Now you might think, 8 years wasted in finance, right? Wrong. That financial background became the foundation that helped them understand unit economics and cash flow in ways most creative entrepreneurs never grasp. While everyone else was climbing ladders, she was building bridges between worlds most people never connect. So then, when you recognize the science behind your success, is where it gets really interesting. Herminia Ibarra, forgive me if I mispronounced it, research in working identity shows that career experimentation, not introspection, leads to successful career transitions. In other words, stop trying to think your way to clarity, start testing your way there. The data shows that people who test different professional identities through small experiments make more successful career pivots than those who try to meditate their way to their true calling. So, you know what this means? That time you spent freelancing while figuring things out, that wasn't procrastination. That was research. Those 3 side hustles that didn't work out, that wasn't failure. That was education about business mechanics that most MBA programs don't even teach. So, for the third part with the T shaped professional model, here's your framework for explaining why your zigzag makes sense. It's called the T shaped professional model. It's exactly what companies are looking for in 2025. You have vertical expertise, which is deep knowledge in one area, horizontal skills, which is broad experience across disciplines, connection points, which is an ability to bridge different domains. So, like, think about leaders like Tim Cook, an industrial engineer who went to operations to supply chain to Apple CEO, or Oprah, a local news anchor to talk show host to media mogul. Their diverse experiences created unique leadership perspectives impossible to replicate through linear advancement. So, with that, you're not scattered, you're T shaped. Then we have the compound interest of confusion. Here's what nobody tells you about career changes. Every seemingly random experience compounds into something more valuable than the sum of its parts. Think of someone who maybe went from marketing manager to yoga instructor to business consultant. Sounds scattered, right? Wrong. They became what I call a stress translator, someone who helps people and organizations function better under pressure. 3 different contexts, 1 valuable skill, infinite applications. And speaking of connecting ideas across different contexts, this is actually how I organize my thoughts when I'm writing. I use this tool called Cortex that works like a second brain for connecting ideas. Instead of having random notes scattered everywhere, it helps me see the patterns between different concepts, kind of like how your career experiences connect in ways you might not see yet. If you're someone who thinks in connections like this, check it out. There's a link in the show notes for a free trial. Up to the next step, which is reframing your career story. The magic happens when you stop apologizing and start translating. Here's how to cognitive reframe your narrative. I'm too old to start over becomes I'm uniquely qualified to do this differently. I wasted my days becomes I collected valuable data about what works and what doesn't. I don't have a clear brand becomes I bring diverse perspectives to whatever I do. Also, here's a stat that might blow your mind. MIT research shows that an average age of successful startup founders is 45, not 25. That 45-year-old launching a business isn't starting from scratch. They're applying decades of life experience, relationship skills, and hard-won wisdom. Linear thinkers optimize. Nonlinear thinkers innovate. Guess who changes the world? So now you might be wondering how to actually use this. You don't need to completely reinvent your career narrative overnight like I kind of tried to do. Here's exactly what to do when you find yourself in that next networking conversation or interview. When someone asks about your background, try this framework. Start with the thread, I've always been drawn to solving X type of problem. Show the progression. I've approached this through, say, different contexts you've worked in. Connect the dots. What I've learned is insert unique insight from your diverse experience. You can also create a bridge to value. That's why I'm excited about your current opportunity because insert how your background applies. I know you might be thinking, but what if they see right through this? Here's the thing, you're not selling them a story, you're helping them see what was always true about your path. And if you want to practice this narrative and build your thought leadership around it, I've been using Typefully to craft and schedule my thoughts on LinkedIn and X or Twitter, if you want to still call it that. It helps me develop these ideas in a way that's authentic but strategic. The link's in the show notes if you want to give it a try. It's been a game changer for building authority around topics just like this. So when you find yourself explaining a gap or transition, just remember this. We're all learning this together. Career paths in 2025 look nothing like they did in 1995. And the people who figure this out first, I think, are going to have a massive advantage. So if I were you, I'd start by identifying one detour you've been viewing as lost time. Write down 3 skills that you've developed during that period and consider how those skills apply to what interests you now. So with that, here's a little bit of homework. Pick one conversation this week, say networking, coffee chat, doesn't matter, and practice connecting your experiences instead of apologizing for them. So, in closing, now that you know why your zigzag career isn't a consolation prize, but a better story than any straight line could ever tell, we've just figured out how to turn your biggest career insecurity into your secret weapon, and honestly, the people still trying to follow that linear playbook are going to be playing catch up. You've got this, and here's how to keep going. Stop measuring yourself against someone else's timeline. Your nonlinear path isn't a detour from success, it's a different route to a more interesting destination. And it's time to own it. So, with that, I'd love to hear how this lands for you. And if you want more perspective shifting content like this, you can find my newsletter on Substack, link in the show notes, and just search for my name. And if you want to connect and share your own nonlinear success stories, be sure to hit me up through my link tree. All the links are in the show notes. Thanks for exploring this with me. And remember, your zigzag journey is writing a more interesting story than any straight line ever could. Until next time, thanks for listening.